Kids, a lot of stuff has happened to your dear old dad over the years, and some of that stuff you know. Stories like how I broke my ACL at work, or how I started a YouTube channel. That was a video sharing site on the internet back in the day. I've even told you the stories of how I met your mother, but today I want to tell you the story of how I watched How I Met Your Mother, which was a television show. Kids, back in the spring of 2005, I was still in high school, going through my awkward phase and learning what it meant to be an adult. I already had a job and was preparing for some big exams, but not studying all too hard. But that doesn't mean you shouldn't be doing that as well. It was in this time that a show premiered called How I Met Your Mother, which stars a group of 5 people in their late 20s. It tells the grand and very long story of a man named Ted and what he had to go through and what he had to become before he could meet his wife and future mother of his kids. The show lasted 9 seasons and all of the ups and downs of a sitcom, with a lot of the bizarre and oftentimes improbable situations that people on TV find themselves in. The show can be summed up with just the title alone, but I'll give you guys some more detail and context. The show starts with Ted telling his kids the full story of how he met their mother, and it starts with them meeting the girl of his dreams, their Aunt Robin. That's right, aunt, meaning that she isn't the mother. Over the course of 9 seasons, he dates a lot of women. Some are crazy and some are good for him, but in the end they all leave him for one reason or another, or a few of them he breaks up with. Some notable women in his life are Victoria, the girl he fell in love with early in the show, and she only left him because she moved to Germany for a culinary school position. Then there was Stello, who was a great match for Ted in most ways, and they worked at their relationship. It wasn't all easy because both of them had baggage. They were even going to get married, but she left him at the altar. There are other women for sure, including the times he dated Robin or Zoe, who most people hated, but they were just all wrong for him. During all of this, we have Marshall and Lily, a couple who are engaged. They break up for a bit, get back together, and eventually get married and start a life together. They are the show's symbolism for relationship goals, where they are so in love and both crazy enough for each other. Then there is Barney, the ladies' man of the group. He loves women a lot. He dates and scores with lots of them over the course of the show, and even he starts to develop feelings for some of them, like Quinn and even Robin, causing him to question his lifestyle. The last main member of the group is Robin, and her character arc shows her as a girl from Canada who's trying to make it in the TV news world. Her career isn't going all too well though, as she doesn't get many jobs, and when she does, it's with people that are very unprofessional. But her charisma, tenacity, and luck do pay out for her as she does move up in the world. All of these stories are mostly used to show something funny in an episode until Ted finally meets the mother. Now kids, I should tell you more about the characters and all of that stuff, but my voice is getting very tired, but I had the genius insight to film all of this, so I'll just show you the clips, now, because I'm so smart. Man, making a video just so I can show my kids 30 years in the future that I watched How I Met Your Mother, yeah. That's a great idea. Hi. Let's probably get started. So let's start with Ted. He's the main character, and he's played by Josh Radnor. He was a fairly unknown star before landing this, and he became a very popular name during the time that this show was on. He's the main character, so he has a lot of the show dedicated to him and the fact that it's his search for his future wife. He's a big nerd and a little bit showboaty, which is a little bit annoying over the course of the show, but at the same time it's alright because he's also really stupid at normal things, and he's pretty goofy a lot of the time as well. Over the show, he has a good range as an actor as well, portraying both these funny, stupid, light-hearted moments and the more serious, sad moments as well. But as he is the lead and the show is pretty much dedicated to his entire life, you can't help but just yell at him for some of the decisions that he makes because they're so idiotic. You're like, why would you do that, Ted? Just don't. Just do something else, or go for this person, or make this work, or do this conversation. But no, he screws it up a lot because it's a show and they had to last as many seasons as they could. Marshall is played by Jason Segel, and he had a little bit of fame on the show Freaks and Geeks, which I don't think lasted very long. It was only a season. I've never watched it, but I've heard it's very good. So he had a little bit of fame before going into this, but not very much. He plays the devoted boyfriend, then husband to Lily, and as a character, he is fairly goofy. He's quite over the top in a lot of his actions and stuff like that, and a lot of his mannerisms, like creating board games or doing the slap bet, are all way over the top, which is funny because they juxtapose his crazy nature with the fact that he is a lawyer, which is usually a very serious and boring job, but then he's not a serious or boring guy, so they just clash and it adds to a lot of the humor. One of the main reasons that Marshall's in this show is because of his relationship with Lily. Lily is played by Allison Hannigan from Buffy fame. If you ever watched that, she plays Willow. And her as a character, she's also pretty crazy. She's not crazy in the loopy kind of way, crazy in the I'll give you death stares and kill you, and I'll break up people because I don't believe they're right for each other, and that kind of crazy. But you can't help but like her, because when she's not crazy, she's just this sweet, innocent, lovable girl. She's also fiercely independent as well, because she wants to become a person that does art, or an art connoisseur, but then she always falls back on her relationship with Marshall, or at least most of the time, she always falls back to that, because she and him have this great relationship on screen. Kobe Smulders plays Robin, who is a very career-driven woman. She's a new person to the town and everything, because she once came from Canada, and now she's living in New York and trying to become a news anchor, but she's not doing too well. She has a lot of ups and downs throughout the show, but she does get a lot of lucky breaks, and she does get more and more further in her career. It's just that a lot of the time she's working with imbeciles and people that really shouldn't be working on television, and they're just getting in her way. As she was mostly raised to be a boy, she doesn't have many of the girly traits that most other women on TV have, so she likes to drink scotch, she wants to enjoy a cigar, she does all the stuff that you would normally think a man would do, but then they give it to her. She also is not a big fan of marriage or kids or anything like that. She just wants to be in a relationship, have fun and explore and go all through all those motions, but she's not into the big picture so much. She just wants to have fun in the moment. The big picture for her is her career, so a lot of the relationship stuff is sort of on the side at the start of the show, but as she goes on, she does evolve and change. Then we have the runaway star Barney, played by Neil Patrick Harris, who had fame before this. He was Doogie Howser as a kid, and then he went on to do a lot of movies, a lot of TV shows, and even some plays and on Broadway and stuff like that. But he was never a household name again after he went off Doogie Howser. That is until this show, and it shot him back up to fame really fast. The reason being because he is just so much fun. He has this high intensity energy throughout the entire show, with so many over-the-top expressions and over-the-top like mannerisms and everything that's just over the top. He's a magician, and he's picking up girls in nearly every episode, and even though that's normally a bad thing because he is literally a man whore, you can't help but like him because he is just such a goofball, such a naive person. He's like a little kid that is just doing all these naughty things, and you just can't help but go, oh, damn that Barney. I hate to like him, but I do. I hate the fact that he's doing all this womanizing, but it's so entertaining. So it's really hard to wrap your head around it, but for some reason it all works. Barney is also one of the characters that, in my opinion, goes through the most character growth over the entire show. When you start watching the first episodes of Season 1 and compared to the last episodes of Season 9, you can see a massive change in his character, in his arc, as it were, before it gets to the end, as opposed to every other character. A lot of the other characters have growth, all of the main characters have growth to some degree, but I think he gets the most out of it. As this is a sitcom, there are plenty of episodes, 208 in fact, kids. That is a lot of television right there, and while you could probably watch any episode out of place, the show does have a narrative. Each episode has a story and continuity with who is dating who and each character's relationships. Each episode follows a similar format though, with Ted narrating at the start to set up the story and sometimes giving a brief previously on to catch up the audience before you get into the conflict, jokes and conclusion, though some stories can last multiple episodes, the topic that they are addressing usually only lasts one. There are plenty of memorable episodes and funny moments. Some of my favorites are Robin Sparkles, when we find out that Robin has a Canadian pop star background. It's very silly and doesn't make much sense, honestly, but then again, it doesn't have to, because it's just really played for laughs. And that goddamn song gets stuck in my head all the time. Let's go to the mall today! Another classic set of episodes are the slap bet ones. In one of the episodes, to cut a long story short, Barney and Marshall make a bet and the winner gets to slap the loser in the face. Marshall wins, and he wins 5 slaps, which he can take anytime in any episode to do. This leads him to delivering some of them with a surprise, just like walking up and slapping Barney and then going, that's number one, and then other ones building up the hype like the slaps giving episodes. Not everything about this show is funny either. I personally like the episode where Ted dates Stella. He is this hopeless romantic which has been shown time and time again on the show, and she has been guarded due to most of her past hurts. She also doesn't have much free time, so instead Ted takes her on a 2-minute date. It is so sweet and well thought out, even though it's pretty silly. I love the fact that she plays along with it all as well, and the chemistry that they have between them is believable for a first date. In fact, there are so many good episodes, with most of them featuring something different, that the bad episodes don't feel too bad because there's still funny elements in them. But none of this would work well if it wasn't for the dynamic of the group. Now, everybody has their really smart moments and really dumb moments for no real reason other than plot convenience. They still work together well as a group. Take the relationship between Marshall and Lily, which are one of my favorite on-screen relationships ever, really, because even though they were each other's first and that's all really sweet and they have this cute background, they just work well together. It's not like they agree with everything each other says or they fight every 5 seconds. No, they have a real relationship and they really work on it too. They have problems, they have in-jokes like a real relationship does, and then when those problems come back or those in-jokes come back through the different episodes, you can see it. You can see how they work well together. There's even times where they're just pretty much in sync with each other and one's talking, the other's talking, and then they just do this crazy cool high five, like bam, they're not even looking at each other because they're just so in sync. But it isn't all happy, and there are times where they do fight, which makes this feel more real. There's things like the fact that Marshall's mum doesn't really like Lily, and this is brought up in one episode, but it keeps coming back. It's one of the regular arguments, and that's true for a lot of relationships. A lot of relationships have those 1 or 2 arguments that just keep coming back because either it doesn't get solved or it's just still hurtful for one person. In one of the episodes, Lily leaves Marshall before they even get married in order to start her art career, something that she's always wanted to do, and it absolutely crushes Marshall, and it's just to this point where you can see how much he cares for her. Then when she comes back the episodes later, you can see how much she cares for him because she misses him, and you're just like, wow, you guys perfectly love each other, but you just being stubborn and silly at the moment. And the fact that even though this is a big thing, it doesn't get wrapped up in one single episode. It takes a few episodes before they even start working it through with each other, and then even then it takes even more episodes before they fully work it all out, and then it comes back a couple times when they're having arguments because Marshall still feels the pain of being left, and I really like that. That is very smart writing on the writer's part, and it just makes these people feel more real, and that's what I really like about these two. One other thing to note is that it's not just me that thinks that these two are a brilliant couple on screen, because Barney, the womanizer that hates relationships and thinks that every woman is just an object to be taken advantage of, he believes in Marshall and Lily's relationship to the point where he even sabotages Marshall's attempts to get another girl, and which is really odd because you think, but he's a womanizer and he loves women and he just wanted Marshall to date other women, but that's not what he wanted. He wanted them to get back together because even he believes in their relationship. But where we have great couples, on the flip side of the coin, we also have the bad ones, like Robin and Ted, and oh my god, I hate them together. In the very first episode, they ended with, and that's how I met your Aunt Robin. So from the get-go, we as an audience know that she is not the mum. That's great. This is so good because there is none of that guessing of will they, won't they kind of thing that plagues most sitcoms, and honestly annoys me. We know that they don't end up together, and they even reinforce it with their characters. Ted is a hopeless romantic that always thinks with his heart and puts his friends above almost everything. He wants to settle down and have kids and a home and all of that. Robin isn't into the helpless romance. She likes to be swept off her feet for sure with the gestures, but she doesn't know how to reciprocate them and act towards them. Maybe it's because she was raised as a boy. She also cares about her work and career more than her friends, which she demonstrates multiple times, and she doesn't want a relationship or even kids or marriage. But I will say that they do have a chemistry, so the show does explore that, and they do date. Now, the first time this happens, I was like, alright, get it out of the way early so you don't have to dwell on it. Let the characters learn that they aren't good for each other. But dwell on it, they did. When I first watched this show, I would get so annoyed at this relationship because I knew it was doomed because of the very first episode, but they spend all 9 seasons talking about these two. When the show tells you outright from the start that these two aren't going to be together, then the time spent together is so frustrating and a waste of time. I don't even know why Ted was so hung up on her. She was wrong for him in so many ways, but he doesn't see that. Where 2 of his other major relationships, Stella and Victoria, complement Ted and seem like they would work, Robin doesn't. Hell, the only reason why he and Victoria didn't work out at first was because of Robin, and Robin also screwed up Ted's wedding to Stella due to a series of events. She sabotaged many attempts for him to be happy by just being around. Now, one relationship I did like, which wasn't Robin and Ted, was Robin and Barney. Where they were together, they were dysfunctional for sure, but they also worked quite well. They set up the seeds for their relationship all the way back in season 1, and then in the later seasons they decided to explore it, and I like that. The fact that these two complement each other so well with a lot of the things that they are interested in, like she's fairly boyish, so she has like the like of cigars and scotch, which are Barney's favorite things. The fact that they are always together and they're just nice to each other most of the time. This is one of the few women that Barney doesn't try to hit on and do the same plays that he would other women that he always does to everybody else. So this shows a level of respect that he doesn't show most other women. But they are dysfunctional for sure. There's so many times where Barney will do one of his crazy stunts and then Robin will be like, I don't like this, and then they'll fight and they'll have to have a compromise because it's a TV show, so they're always sort of happy where they left off. But the thing is that makes it feel more real. And then there are times where Barney will do something crazy and Robin will just turn around and be like, oh my god, that's the guy that I love, and oh, I love the fact that he can do this, or that he did this for me. And that's so well done, because it shows that they aren't perfect, but there's so many things about each other that they do like and that they do hate, but they work on the relationship. I'll talk more about the relationship in the spoilers section, so don't think I'm done with them yet. One interesting thing about this show is that they never knew how long it was going to last, and as such they had a few stand-in mothers. These were people that would have been the mum if the show was cancelled or not renewed for another season. These include Victoria and Stella, and while they may have not fit the narrative of the story perfectly, they still would have worked in a rushed way. It wasn't until the later seasons, I think it was season 7, that they knew how much time they had left and set aside the spare mums, because they knew exactly how many episodes they had left, so they could introduce the mum in the final season. The other interesting thing was that due to the show running for many years, they had used the kids to tell the story too. As the show went on, they aged, and at the end of the second season, they had to film a whole bunch of stock footage with these kids, including a few endings with them and a few reactions so they could use over the years. It's not like me with you kids, you're totally real. Something random and pretty strange about this as well was the fact that the narrator, even though it's supposed to be a future Ted, it was voiced by Bob Saget of Full House fame. He does every single episode except for the final one, and he goes uncredited through the entire show, which I thought is really strange. Why would he do that? Why would they do that? Now, there are plenty of good things and bad things about this show, and I honestly think that the good things outweigh the bad things most of the time. There are a few boring episodes, and there are a few parts which aren't that funny, but for the majority of it, it is funny and it is entertaining. Then we get to the final season, and with this there is going to be spoilers. Also, I'm probably gonna get into a rant, and I know if anybody has seen this show, they'll know what I will be ranting about. But I'm gonna put a little time here. If you don't want any spoilers for the last season and the way that the show ends, just go to this timestamp here, and I'll see you there. Otherwise, enjoy the ride. The final season is all about the wedding between Robin and Barney and all the crazy shenanigans that go over the last 2 days, which equals an entire season apparently. A lot of people had an issue with this because it was such an enclosed space and they weren't going out and doing their usual shenanigans, that people didn't like this series so much. I personally don't mind it because they still kept the entertainment high. It was just a little bit more brought in from other seasons. First off, I want to get into some of the good things that I like about this season. We get to meet the mother of the show. That's, the whole point of this. and we get to do so in a few different ways. It starts off with the fact that the mother gets to meet every one of the main cast members before she gets to meet Ted. And I like that. I like that she had a relationship with everybody, at least meeting them once or, twice in some of the cases of the characters. But I like that it made it so that she could bounce off of them and we can get to know her without having to see Ted and her interact with each other. And there's even an episode dedicated to her in the final season, showing what she's been doing for the last 9 years, pretty much, over the course of the show. And I really like that. That episode is probably the best episode of that entire season because it's fairly well done. You get to see who she is, what she's been doing. She's a likable character, and the ending of that episode is really sweet. One problem that this show had was the fact that it was called How I Met Your Mother, not How I Dated Your Mother. So they got around this with the final season showing flash forwards to Ted and Tracy, the name of the mother, dating, and I really like this. So we get to see different points in their life. We get to see when he proposed to her, or when she first got pregnant, or just other little interactions with her, and I really like this. It just shows that it just complements each other. Like, she is quite good for Ted. She isn't perfect, and they do have some issues, as we find out throughout the entire 9 seasons, but they work well together and there's a lot of chemistry there, and I like that they did get to spend a little bit of time just showing their relationship because they couldn't spend too much time with it, or they really could, it was their own show, but they decided to just have these little flashes of things to show you what their relationship will be like. Then there is the actual meeting of Ted and Tracy. It was 9 years, pretty much, nearly 10 years in the making from when the show first started to that final episode. And we had known the short story of it, of like the yellow umbrella and the fact that he would meet her at the end of this wedding. But to see it actually happen was quite beautiful. They have this instant chemistry and this instant like, oh, I don't know if I should date you or not-ness, like, because they've both been hurt and all these things throughout the entire show, but it was so well done. The fact that over the entire course of this show, Ted has been so hung up on Robin, but in the final season, they show just how obsessed he was with her. Even when she's going to get married to Barney, he was still in love with her. But this show did two things super duper important. They showed Ted letting go of Robin twice. There's one point where he has an heirloom that she really wants, and instead of giving it to her and becoming the hero, he gives it to Barney, and he metaphorically lets her go. Like, he doesn't want these feelings anymore. He gives her away. He gives Barney his blessing. There's even when Barney goes to propose to her as well in season 8, he gives Barney his blessing. It's all part of the plan. Then later on in season 9, there is a part where they are on the beach and he physically lets go of her. He is moving on. Now, it's taken 9 years, and that really annoyed me, but they had to have something in the show, I guess. And the moments after he finally lets go of Robin, he meets Tracy. And that's what I think really works between these two, because no longer is he hung up on this one girl. He can finally move on, and as soon as he tries to move on, boom, meets the mother. So I think that was really well done, and the whole thing just meant a lot, and it was just like so grounded in reality and grounded in the show, and it was just, I can't praise that enough. It didn't disappoint after 9 years. There's some negatives about the final season is the fact that Marshall doesn't meet up with the cast for nearly half of the season. They spend so much time with him trying to get back home, and they only do this just to sell other stories to us. They probably didn't have enough material for just everybody at the wedding and trying to write for everybody doing every single different thing that they could possibly think of. So instead, they gave us these Marshall scenes where he's pretty much trying to travel from Minnesota to the wedding, and he has to get into cars, and he's fighting the lady from Community. Is she from Community? I think so. No. Is she? No. Anyways, She's fighting this lady, I can't remember off the top of my head, and some of it is entertaining, but most of it feels like filler. They just put it in there just to pad out the show. But when he finally gets back to the thing and he has to drop the big news that that one of the dreams that Lily had can't come true, ooh, it's a great episode. And like I said, you really see these two struggle as they go through the hardships of their relationship, and it lasts like 2 or 3 episodes, this fight, which also makes it better because, you know, you get to see it happening, and you know, it's not one of those, oh, let's fight, let's get over it, and really quickly, which a lot of sitcoms do. And so that part was good. It was just the fact that Marshall wasn't there, so they could prolong this fight pretty much for a half a season, and I was like, oh, it's pretty dumb. Let's talk about the final episodes. It's a 2-parter, I believe, and oh my god, did they absolutely screw the pooch with these final 2 episodes. Everything that this show had going for it over the last 9 years was pretty much taken out back, shot and buried, because it is god awful. We spent an entire season and a little bit on the fact that Barney and Robin were getting married. We went through everything, every little crisis and every little story that they had to go through in order to get married. That's cool, yeah, that was the final season, okay. But then right at the end of the show, they break up. They break up. Oh my god. They get a divorce 3 years after being married because Robin decides to pick up the world news job where she has to travel around the world, and then Barney doesn't really fit into her equation, and they try and make it work, but it's just really hard, so they end up breaking up. And I don't see why, because it's not like Barney really has to do anything with his life, but okay. Fine, they broke up, but why then spend an entire season watching them getting married if you're literally going to break them up at the end? And it's not even for a good reason, and we'll get to that later. This show then makes all of the group fall apart. As soon as the show ends, pretty much everybody just, you know, goes away from each other. Robin and Barney go off to do their honeymoon, and then they don't see the group as much because she's off doing the world news, and then when they do break up, she's still off doing the world news, so they're not around. Marshall and Lily have a family, Ted is starting a family, and Barney's just being a womanizer again. He doesn't have any of that character growth that we saw over the last, 9 years. And I understand part of that because Robin was the love of his life, and he couldn't make it work with Robin, then what's the point? He would just go back to his old ways. So I understand his regression, but nonetheless, they all just scatter from each other, and it's so unsatisfying. So now that he's regressed back to old Barney and everything like that, and they're doing some more jokes with him trying to pick up women even though he's old, there is one scene in this entire season finale that actually makes up for it. He has sex with a random woman. She's known as Woman 31 because she doesn't even have a name. That's how little the creators cared about this. And he gets her pregnant, and she gives birth to a daughter. And the moment that Barney sees her, he has this epiphany, this profound moment where he will do anything for her. He is in love with her. There is no other girl in the world for him now, and it changes him in the absolute best way possible, to his utter core. And I loved that. That is clearly the best scene of the entire two-parter, and it's a shame because it had to result after his breakup with Robin. Why couldn't she have children? Why do they have to write that into the stupid script? He could have had a kid with her, and then the same moment could have happened and everybody would have been happy. But no, they had to write it in for other reasons, which I'm gonna get to very shortly. The two final things that absolutely screw everything up is the fact that as Ted is telling this story to his kids, Tracy is dead. You heard right. The mum died of some kind of off-screen death. We aren't given any details or anything. Could be cancer, could have been hit by a bus, who knows. Now, there were some hints in the show that this happened, because there's an episode where Ted does this speech about an extra 45 days with her, which led a lot of people to think that she was going to die. Then there is an episode with them as a future, one of those ones where it has the future thing, and he tells her that we finally become an old couple, we finally made it, and he's so happy, and she's like, oh, just tell me the stories and we'll grow together. And he has this sad moment, like he knows something, like she's gonna die, and she's just trying to, you know, keep him all happy and chipper. And I like the foreshadowing, but I hate the death. Why did they kill her? There's only one reason why they did, and that's the biggest FU that the show has ever done to us. But we'll get to that in a second. Why did they kill her? There was absolutely no reason. She could have stayed alive and the narrative could have made sense. If they really wanted a reason to tell this entirely long 9-year story to their kids, they could have done the whole she is sick and in hospital, so Ted is worried about her, and that he tells this story to his kids in order to get everything out in case she doesn't make it. But then she does, and everybody's happy, and everyone lives happily ever after. Yay! But no, they didn't do that route. She is dead, and that's the only reason why he's doing this story. He's been a single father for the last like 10 years or something like that. So that means, if you follow the narrative of the story, then that means that he and Tracy were only together for less than 10 years, which is a big shame. Like, we spent more time with him as a character than he spent with his wife, and that's sad. But the reason why they killed her was in order to get him back with Robin. So remember when I told you that back in season 2 they had some endings filmed and they already knew where the show was going to end? Well, that's where it was going to end. The back and forth between him and the kids say like, look, this whole story hasn't been about how we met your mother, it's all been about how you were in love with Robin for 9 years. And he's like, oh yeah, I guess that's true. And they're like, well, Dad, you're a widower, go get with her. And he's like, you know what? Yeah, I will. What the actual fudge? Oh my god. The only reason why they had to break up Barney and Robin was because they had to get her single again in order to get with Ted. And this was a total FU, and it doesn't even make any sense as a character standpoint. She has been dedicated to her career for the last 10 years or whatever it is, and not even Barney, who was pretty flexible, could make it work with her. He didn't have all the same things that Ted does. He's a hopeless romantic, where Barney is just, you know, not like that usually. But if Ted does get with her and he's a hopeless romantic, and now he's not looking for kids because he already has some, so Robin can't have any, so that works out there, but he is still going to be looking for a relationship. What's to say that the same thing that Robin did to Barney won't happen to him? There's a good chance that it will. The fact that she will always choose a career. Over the course of the show, most of the times where Robin is in a relationship and something in her career comes up, she chooses her career. There is one time that she doesn't, and in that one time, she gets absolutely burnt for it. When she was dating Don and she gets offered this amazing news job and she says no, and then they give it to Don and he leaves. And she chooses relationships over her career, and that scarred her because she's like, look, I can't do this anymore. So what's to say that with her and Ted it's going to work? Nothing says that. The fact that they dated quite a few times over the last 9 years and it never worked was so frustrating. Why would they do this? Oh my god. This show almost, this episode's almost ruined the entire show for people, and I can see why, because it's just absolutely idiotic. Why would you spend 9 years waiting for the mum and 9 years to see this conclusion, only for them to kill her off and then go, haha, now he's with Robin, and then not even conclude that story very well? It's just, you know, a recreation of the first episode, and oh my god. Happy place, happy place, happy place. Please go to my happy place. The final season wasn't all bad, like I said. I really love the interactions with future Ted and Tracy, and it shows them really working together, and that he has his happy ending. That was the whole point of the show. Unlike most people, I didn't mind the entire season at the wedding because it was full of fun stories, throwbacks to past episodes, and concluding some of those jokes. Now, in defense of the show, the creators came out about the ending and said that this was the ending that they had wanted from the start, and while I commend them for sticking to their vision, a major problem with what they had is the fact that their idea was back from season 2, and then 7 seasons later they had to regress 3 of the main characters to their season 2 mindsets in order for it to work. Why spend 7 years transforming Robin, Ted, and Barney only to turn them back with the snap of a finger? If they had the ending planned, then they should have prepared for it much better. Lead the characters in a way that would eventually get them to the point where they would get back together so you could have the right ending that you wanted. Why marry Barney and Robin if you were only going to break them up? The creators also said that they wanted to ground the ending in a bit of reality. Friends drift away and relationships fail. People die, but life moves on, and it's the time that we spend with each other that is important. This was meant to be bittersweet, but it's actually bitter horseshit. My main problem with that is the fact that the rest of the 9 seasons aren't based too much in reality, with all of the crazy stuff that happens. Concluding it in a reality just doesn't make any sense. Like I said, people wanted a happy and satisfying ending to a show that they had been watching for 9 years. Why would we want a sad end or bad ending? That's just absolutely crazy. This finale left such a hatred for the show that I think is unfair. The rest of the show is actually fairly decent. If the ending was slightly different, then this show would have lived fondly on in people's memories, but as it stands, this is a big stain on the show, and this has made so many people sour towards it. Even when I was rewatching the seasons for this review, one thing just kept coming back into my mind, the fact that all of it meant nothing, because at the end of the day, while he does meet the mum, she doesn't live, and then he only gets back with Robin. I was so pissed off, especially when he and Robin kept getting back together in those 9 seasons, and it kept proving time and time again that they weren't good for each other. But in conclusion, I think that How I Met Your Mother is worth it. It is a really good show. The characters are very interesting and funny. Even Robin, who I don't really like as much as the other 4, she's still good because she plays off of everybody so well, and one of my favorite episodes is her and her Canadian pop star background. So everything about this show is fairly interesting. The characters, the stories, the jokes, they're all well written, and the fact that this show has such a long narrative and it makes mostly good sense. It's pretty well done. It's just that ending that really screws up the entire show in a lot of people's minds. The fact that it all led to nothing, and that's a big shame. There is an edit online, and that was released in the final season's DVD, which has the cut out of the final episode. But it's trying to stitch together something that wasn't made to do that. They made this episode the way that they wanted, and they only changed it due to all of this backlash. And whilst it does lead to a little bit more to a satisfying ending, it still isn't satisfying. It just feels like there was supposed to be more, and the fact that there is actually more is just, well, not what we wanted. And once again, it just leaves you unsatisfied, but a little bit less angry than if you were to watch the original ending. So guys, tell me what you thought about How I Met Your Mother. Did you enjoy it? Did you not? Did you watch it whilst it was on the air, or did you give up after like a couple of seasons where you're like, well, they haven't found the mother up to 4 seasons. How long is this show gonna go for? Because some of my friends actually did that. And tell me what you think about Ted and the mum as well, like, because I really enjoy them together. My girlfriend didn't really like them because she's just pretty much a carbon copy of Ted, and she's like, oh, well, the only way to make Ted happy is to have a female Ted. And I was like, but I still like her. You know. But anyways, so yeah, don't forget to like and subscribe, and I'll see you guys next time. Bye! Kids, a lot of stuff has happened to your dear old dad over the years, and speaking like an American for no reason, just because. I think I will tell you the story of how I watched How I Met Your Mother, which was a television show. Doing a little bit of my Arthur Book Wormington as well. So of course Arthur Book Wormington, and then an American. I'm so sorry for my singing, guys. If you want me to stop, just say it. Otherwise, I'll keep singing. Now I want to talk about some of the good things of this season before I start my rant. First off, Yui